Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the Pink's CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is award-winning investigative reporter and publisher of the Breaker Doc News, Bob Mackin. Welcome back to the show, Bob.
Thank you.
Well, finally, we find out about Gregor email Robertson, and apparently he's been a bad boy when it comes to emails.
Yes, indeed. It's been almost a year since I discovered inadvertently on one email, one Freedom of Information release, that Gregor Robertson had a Gmail account where he was getting email about civic business. And that is a no-no. That's a no-no. That's been a no-no since Elizabeth Denham, who was the Information Privacy Commissioner at the time, told the public back in 2013 to 2015, a number of times, and told public body officials, whether they're elected or appointed, that you can't do this. You shouldn't be doing this. Even though there's nothing actually in law that says they can't, there is something in law that says that by doing so, by using a private email service, if you discuss anything about public business, it is still fair game for FOI, and it must be searched. And not all public bodies will actually go to that step of searching the personal email, because often they don't know, and often the politician or the bureaucrat will say, no, I don't use my private email to conduct public business, and I don't even have a private email account, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. But Elizabeth Denham said that if you do, then it becomes FOIable, but please don't, because these private email services often reside on servers in foreign countries, and there are issues about privacy and protection of information, of Canadian information, and that should be on domestic servers versus foreign servers for very good reasons. So Gregor Robertson, though, disobeyed that, and he was using a Gmail account as far back as I can tell of 2014 to conduct civic business. And so I FOI'd that last fall, and the City of Vancouver Freedom of Information Office asked the Information Privacy Commissioner for a couple hundred days. They wanted a couple hundred days to delay disclosure because they said, there's just too much. There's more than 5,000 pages we've got to go through to find the documents and then disclose it. It's going to tax our resources. We've got too many other things to do. That's what they said. They cried to the Information Privacy Commissioner's office. Thankfully, the Information Privacy Commissioner's office said, nah, not so. And they gave them until June. The City Hall actually wanted to delay this until after the election. But that was before Gregor Robertson made the bombshell announcement that he wasn't running in the 2018 election. So June came and went. City of Vancouver took more time, and they complained to the Information Privacy Commissioner and said, hey, they're trying to game the system. They're trying to find another way to delay this until after the election. And lo and behold, at the end of July, I got what I was looking for. It took some time to analyze the documents. They sent me more than 300 pages. I also realized that putting this out in August, when I wouldn't have much of a chance to ask the mayor for his comment, and when the public isn't really interested as much in politics and government as they are in September. So I delayed it until this week and popped the story out there this week with some examples of some of his private email correspondence. So the public now knows more about Gregor Robertson and how he has communicated for a number of years on Gmail. And the words of the Information Privacy Commissioner at the time, Elizabeth Denham, which really are echoed by the current Privacy and Information Commissioner, Michael McAvoy, are that whenever a public official uses uses ways and means to hide information, it is something that is frustrating the law, frustrating the public's right to know, and it is wrong.
Is there a possibility he could be charged with breach of trust for doing that?
That's a good question. I haven't found anything that would bring it into the criminal realm. I've definitely found something that, in the court of public opinion, the public doesn't like this. That might be a good question for others, especially those who I know are investigating situations like the Brent Hill land swap. Maybe the people who are investigating that at the RCMP ought to knock on Mr. Robertson's door before he leaves as mayor and ask to see his email in order to see if there's anything in that email which could provide clues one way or another on that deal or any other matter that could point to corruption in Vancouver. Still have questions about that weird meeting on a Saturday afternoon in May 2015 when Gregor Robertson went over to Ian Gillespie's office at the Shaw Tower downtown. A mayor going over to visit a party donor and important developer on a Saturday afternoon at the developer/donor's office is one of those man bites dog situations. A developer going to City Hall on a business day to see the mayor is more of a dog bites man issue. I never got a response from Gillespie and his people or Gregor Robertson and his people to answer the question of what was going on that day. So maybe that Gmail account might have clues to that. That Gmail account could have clues to a lot of things. It's something that I've filed more FOI requests and hoping to get more out of it to find out more about the private or attempts to be private and secretive by Gregor Robertson in his communications. Again, I'm hoping that the people at the City Hall FOI office are giving me everything. We don't have a duty to document law here in British Columbia, and politicians and bureaucrats are free to decide whatever they think is transitory and isn't worthy of keeping. We don't know if the delete key was pushed on anything, either by mistake or on purpose to keep information away from me. I don't know if I've got all of the email that Gregor Robertson used to talk about civic issues. This is a great weakness in the system, and again, the NDP promised during the 2017 election that they would bring a duty to document law in to force politicians and bureaucrats to retain information, and that there'd be penalties up to $50,000 fines for deleting information incorrectly or without authorization. They haven't done that yet. So here you have Gregor Robertson among many mayors in the Vancouver area leaving office, not running again. And what did they do while in office? Did more mayors than Gregor Robertson, did more city councillors in Vancouver and other places communicate on private email systems in order to avoid detection, in order to keep things secret? I think this is a major situation that the public should start asking serious questions of. I know I am. And we've seen what happened in the United States with Hillary Clinton. We've seen what happened in the BC Liberal government with the Quicklin scandal and cabinet ministers and their aides communicating via private email systems like Gmail. We've seen in other provinces and seen federally. This is a serious situation when our politicians think that, for political reasons especially, that they have to hide from us. They are our employees. They exist. Their jobs exist because of us. We deserve better from them, and they should not be taking steps in order to keep information about their jobs away from us. Things have gotten out of balance.
We'll have more with Bob Mackin right after the break.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp, MGI, and the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected several high-grade gold intersections, including 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. Additional drill targets on the LH property have been identified by a 2018 drone airborne magnetic survey to further evaluate a pyrrhotite-enriched gold-bearing system. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Mackin. Bob, was there anything that really stood out in those 5,000 emails from Gregor Robertson that you noticed?
Well, a number of things. There was one strange email where Robertson on his Gmail account and a couple of other cohorts in the mayor's office, including his chief of staff at the time, Mike McGee, and Kevin Quinlan, the deputy chief of staff who became the chief of staff, had something to do about Chip Wilson. It just said Chip Wilson, but the rest of it was censored. And I don't know what that's about. And they're hiding behind alleged policy advice and recommendations to keep information away from us about whatever they were talking about Chip Wilson. Chip Wilson, of course, the founder of Lululemon, a very important Vancouver business in the sportswear retail industry. Chip Wilson is also someone who has reinvested a lot of his profits into local real estate. He's someone that has one of the most expensive mansions in Canada. Now it's worth about $75 million. He's someone who was a key supporter of Vision Vancouver and also BC Liberals. He is now supporting the NPA. He is behind the campaign of Ken Sim. It sure would be nice to know more about what the bureaucrats in the mayor's office were saying about Chip Wilson. That's something that would be interesting for the public. I'm sure Chip Wilson would like to know what they were talking about him in that email. I'm going to have to complain to the Information Privacy Commissioner's office to see if they can investigate on that, among other things. There's a lot of talk in there among Gregor Robertson and his fellow politicians in the Vision Vancouver caucus about caucus meetings, which I find troubling too, because there have been legal opinions that have been proffered at the Union of BC Municipalities Convention that say that when enough politicians, when basically a number of politicians meet together from a city council, if they meet the quorum quota, then that actually should be a city council meeting. And they should actually advertise that to the public. They should let the public into that meeting. And if there's a reason why the public shouldn't be in that meeting for reasons of legal issues, land and labor, the usuals for in camera, they should also issue a notice saying that they're going in camera and the reasons why. Politicians, even if they're in the same party, shouldn't be meeting in secret in that fashion, but Vision Vancouver has. They have a majority of councillors plus the mayor, and they have been meeting in caucus for a number of years, meeting in secret. I tried to find out about it and was told that they didn't keep any written records of their caucus. And the question I have is, well, did they write things down and get rid of them, or did they just meet in caucus, quote unquote, in caucus, and have an oral meeting where they deliberately did not write anything down? This is, again, very troubling. Another deliberate effort to keep the public out of the halls of City Hall, keep the public out of understanding the decision-making process at City Hall. City Hall, which is supposed to be, as we're told, the level of government that's closest to the people. In Vancouver's case, Vision Vancouver has done a great job over its 3 terms in divorcing the public from the politicians and from the decision-making process. So that is troubling too. There's some humorous moments there. It turns out that Greg Robertson doesn't write his tweets. Little tiny thoughts that people put on the internet, push a button and send out to the world. There's numerous cases where he's supplied text for tweets by Kevin Quinlan, who was the deputy chief of staff, now the full chief of staff, sending them by email to Gregor Robertson at his Gmail account, and then Gregor Robertson cut and pasted them into tweets. And so he cut and pasted them into tweets, and in some cases did minor edits, changed a word here or there. But in most cases, it's verbatim from Kevin Quinlan into the Twitter account of Gregor Robertson. So you've got someone who's been the social media mayor of Vancouver, who has made alliances with local companies that employ a lot of people, like Hootsuite, and used Hootsuite as a supplier for election campaigns and helped Hootsuite expand in Vancouver and basically give them a deal on a city-owned building, for instance. Here's a guy who seems to have trouble actually putting into words the policies that he has imposed on Vancouverites. So he relies on his high-priced aide to give him those thoughts, and then he cuts and pastes them into tweets. So Gregor Robertson doesn't write his own tweets, and that was hidden until I was able to reveal that in his private email that I've called the stories that I'm doing are about Mayor Gmail Robertson. His nickname has been Mayor Moonbeam, but I think as he leaves office, we should call him Mayor Gmail Robertson.
Does it seem to you that Vision was being run more like a private club than a political organization?
Indeed, that's the problem in our system. It's not unique to Vision, but any political party that spends too much time in power after that first term, when they want to bring in the policies that their supporters and donors want, they start to look around and say, "Hey, we're in control of this machine now, and it's our machine until further notice, and further notice is the next election. Let's try to figure out a way of winning that next election." And that's what happens in our system, where we don't have term limits and hard deadlines. We have a situation where a party can stay in power as long as it wants, and the third term always seems to be the most difficult one. We saw that with Gordon Campbell and the BC Liberals, who got caught up with the HST and the opposition to that. Well, we saw that happen here in Vancouver with Vision Vancouver, who could not handle the housing crisis. A party that came into power because it said it was going to handle the housing crisis. It was going to start with the most vulnerable of our society, the homeless on the streets, and give them all homes. And in fact, it made more homeless happen and made more Vancouverites, lack affordability of their own housing. So it all backfired. So the third term of Vision Vancouver is the term that the party has basically fallen apart. They don't have a mayoral candidate. After going to and fro, they chose Ian Campbell, who dropped out of the race after some of the skeletons in his closet fell out about a charge that eventually was stayed over a domestic abuse situation in 2010. And here's a party which has very few incumbents. Heather Deal is the only sitting city councillor who is running again in the 2018 election. And they have lost a lot of their backroom support, the people that were really running the party and running their campaigns, first to the Trudeau Liberals in 2015, and then last year to the Horgan NDP. People who were involved in Vision Vancouver found high-paying jobs in the federal government and the provincial government, and they weren't able to replace them and regenerate them with others of similar skills. And not only that, you have the federal Liberals, who seem to be the ones that are kingmakers, leave the Vision Vancouver fold and go back elsewhere to the NPA, although some of them have decided to go back Hector Brenner. That's something else that took the wind out of the Vision Vancouver sails. But this is a phenomenon that happens throughout our system. The longer a party stays in power, the more that party becomes less about the grassroots, less about the policies and the people that put it there, and more about keeping those in power in power.
We'll have more with Bob Mackin right after this.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and planned for Canada this summer. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Mackin, Bob, you finally dug into the Facebook campaign that was pro Hector Bremner and anti-Sims. What did you find out?
Well, I found out from Facebook, and it's not easy to find things out from Facebook. They don't put a named spokesperson in front of you. They're, for some reason, paranoid about putting names to their book. They don't put faces either to Facebook. But they did, after some cajoling, provide me some information about why they took down a couple of pages last weekend. There was one page that disappeared at the start of the weekend, another page which was gone before the end of the weekend. The pages that disappeared at the start of the weekend was Vancouverites for Affordable Housing, which had been up for several weeks. And that was the page that was pro Hector Bremner. And it used some different graphic features, although it used some photos of Hector Bremner to promote his "Let's Fix Housing" slogan, and called him, the candidate best positioned to solve the housing crisis. It took shots at Kennedy Stewart on the left and took shots at Ken Sim on the right, attack ad style, nothing terribly scandalous, but it didn't have a name to it. It was anonymous. And from that Facebook group spawned an out-of-home advertising campaign on billboards and transit posters showing Hector Bremner's face. Bremner, when this launched, was rather silent. Although later on, one of his campaign mouthpieces, Tim Crowhurst, said they didn't know who it was. And that they were glad they were being endorsed, but didn't know who it was. I don't know how many people really believed that denial. It came rather late and was rather flimsy. So that was gone on start of the weekend. By the end of the weekend, there was, or middle of the weekend, there was a page that said Vancouver does not deserve Ken Sim, and it contained some very scandalous allegations, but absolutely no proof to back it up. And Bremner wasn't responding to my queries, and whoever was running this anonymous page wasn't responding to direct messages on Facebook. Still don't know who was running it, like the other one. And Facebook in Canada will not divulge names of users, even if they're anonymous, even if they're taking defamatory shots at politicians. But they did take these down, and Facebook finally did admit to me that one of them was taken down for violating the spam policy, and the other one was violated for the authenticity policy. The one that contained the allegations against Ken Sim was for spam, and the other was for authenticity, the Vancouverites for Affordable Housing. The latter one was using the same name as a group that started in 2015-2016 that was a precursor to the Housing Action for Local Taxpayers group. It was a pro-affordable housing group that was, wanting action on various things like money laundering and wanting a foreign buyer's tax. But the other group, which was taken down for the spam policy, I thought was interesting, contained, again, defamatory allegations against Ken Sim that contained no proof whatsoever. And whoever did this campaign strategy, it backfired on them, and it actually hurt Hector Bremner, because there was a debate on Monday night sponsored by Business in Vancouver, the Vancouver Courier, where the clip from the debate that had the most impact and caused the most media attention was Bremner's denial of being involved or having knowledge of who was behind these Facebook pages. But he also shifted gears and tried to pivot to point towards the Tides Foundation, which has been an integral part behind the scenes with Gregor Robertson in his campaigns at the Vision Vancouver, and also point towards the Vancouver District Labour Council, which has been marshalling the left-wing vote and been supportive of Kennedy Stewart. So he tried to pivot from there, but never did answer the question about whether he would demand whoever was behind these sites produce receipts and show proof that, in fact, his campaign was not behind it. There is an interesting issue here that this is allowed within the loopholes that the NDP have created with the new campaign finance laws, that actually don't kick in until September 22nd, when the actual campaign period begins for the October 20th civic elections. They have left this loophole, and it's kind of troubling that if someone is going to have a campaign that favors one candidate and denigrates another candidate, and it actually has an impact in the end result, and is anonymous, well, what happens at the end of the day when whoever's behind that unmasks himself to the candidate that benefits and starts asking for favors from the candidate that benefits from that anonymous campaign? That is why there are certain rules during the election period where those who do buy advertising have to identify the advertising as paid for by. So this is it's a troubling situation that there are anonymous players still involved in electioneering, even after the situation that happened in 2016 in the United States that has caused so much controversy.
Bob, the people who have filed for mayor in Vancouver, have those filings revealed some interesting things about who's backing them, who's got the money, and so on?
Yeah, I found by looking at Hector Bremner's disclosures that Charles Kelly is one of his backers. He's someone who has a long history in the federal Liberal Party. He is a former aide to a federal Liberal minister back in the 70s, was involved in the Habitat Conference back then, and Charles Kelly himself was the Secretary General of the United Nations Conference in 2006 in Vancouver, the World Urban Forum. He's someone who's been a lobbyist on the federal level for a number of different interests and is advising Bremner on his campaign. He had a lot of good things to say about Hector Bremner as a candidate. He's someone who had been a supporter before of Vision when Robertson came into power in 2008 and had been an NPA supporter until Bremner left the fold. He is someone on the Bremner camp in the Yes Vancouver team. I kind of joke that if you threw a bowling ball down the hallway of the Yes Vancouver campaign headquarters, you wouldn't be able to get to the end of the hallway before hitting all the lobbyists. His campaign Svengali is Mark Marison, of course, who's been a lobbyist for a number of interests. He had his own lobbying company that he's restarted called Burrard Communications or Burrard Strategy. Tim Crowhurst is the campaign mouthpiece. He's someone who is lobbied for the Wine and Spirits lobby group. You've got Cynthia Shore, who's a partner in Progressive Strategies, which is Patrick Kinsella's company, and Patrick Kinsella is probably the king of lobbyists in British Columbia. And they have other people that are involved as well.
So, Bob, what can you conclude from all this? The backroom dealing that so many parties and politicians have said they won't do this time around is still going on?
No, I think that the politics are the same. The big money's still there in some way, shape, or form. It's just being done in a different way, and they're having to raise money in a different way. You know, the Yes Vancouver campaign had a fundraiser at the Florida restaurant, just like the Vancouver First did, and Wai Young and her Coalition Vancouver had their own campaign event elsewhere as well. And so you have a situation where these campaigns are finding different ways to do the fundraising, but they're getting people involved who may be volunteering their time. And the question is, will they properly account for the volunteered time, especially when you've got people who, have corporate interests or have corporate clients? And what will happen for those who win? Will those candidates reward those who helped them out during the campaign with jobs at City Hall or contracts at City Hall? Those questions are rather reasonable as well in the context of this election. But the question will be: will Elections BC spend much time and money on compliance and enforcement and post-election audits to see if people were actually following the rules? Do they have the resources to do that, or will it be the case if people are caught abusing the rules or floating the rules, will they plead ignorance and say, we didn't know how the law was applying? This is all a big experiment, as we see, and the NDP government is admitting that they're going to watch things closely and try to improve the law afterwards, but they left some loopholes that I think are rather troubling.
Plus, now the civic politicians will be elected for 4 years. The NDP could be long out of power by then.
Well, this is the second time that people will be going to the polls to elect people to 4-year terms. Exactly. The NDP could be gone, and what replaces them, if they do get replaced, will there be any new checks and balances? There's no guarantee. Of course, the elections returns to Elections BC will come in the new year, and maybe the NDP can do something about it in the spring session. But of course, one of the NDP MLAs that's running for election is running for election in Nanaimo, Leonard Krogh, which could put the NDP in an interesting spot if he wins that election and he leaves his seat open. Then that means that the minority situation they have is even slimmer, and they could get defeated. You never know. Again, politics can change in a matter of a month or 6 weeks or a matter of a day, depending on what happens. And this civic election campaign across the province will really also have impacts on the provincial politics. In Vancouver, for instance, it's traditionally been that when you've had a left-wing government in Victoria, then Vancouver City Hall goes towards the right. But will that happen in 2018? Will that old rule happen as it has? Because politics has changed. Everything's changed. The old rules seem to be out the window, as we've seen in elections in other provinces, as we've seen in elections down south. This is going to be an interesting month to go as we reach October 20th.
Bob, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you.
Look forward to next week.
All right.
My guest has been Bob Mackin, award-winning investigative reporter and publisher of TheBreaker.News, his website, TheBreaker.ca. You're listening to The Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Any questions for Bob or any of our other guests can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on The Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.